Hi, this is Pat Duckworth, the author of Hot Women Rock, How to Discover Your Midlife Entrepreneurial Mojo. And my guest today is a passionate community builder. She's a connector and business launch growth and mindset coach. She's the curator of Tribe, a women's empowerment group that creates relationships, community, and connection through authentic and vulnerable conversation and storytelling. We love a bit of storytelling. She shows women that there is nothing more powerful for their business, their self, or results than when people create genuine relationships with you and they feel heard, seen, and understood in the process. So it's a big welcome to Jessica Burrell. Hi, Jessica. How are you?
Hey, Pat. Awesome. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Really good to be talking to you, because sometimes we make these connections because we've met somebody in person or they come through someone else, and it's that whole creating a network of women that we can talk to. So Jessica, it's the first time we really get to talk, so I can't wait to hear more about you.
Oh, thank you. And I agree. I think it's so exciting. Like I think I need a better analogy than spider web, but it's really like this web and how all of a sudden our webs start to intertwine. And it's like all these amazing women are coming in my life. And I'm like, how did that happen again? And it was like a domino effect. And I am actually just so incredibly grateful for it. Yeah.
Well, sometimes women say to me, Pat, you're just like casting this web out. And I'm quite happy with that. I don't mind casting a web out.
Perfect.
Good. So tell me, have you always been an entrepreneur, or when did this start for you?
Also, that's a great question. I would say that I've always had like a really strong work ethic. And when I was young, I knew like if I wanted extras in my life, it was up to me to kind of, I'll say hustle, except I had like a bunch of part-time jobs. I remember, and my husband and I were just talking kind of off on a tangent, but my husband and I were just talking about this the other night. And I remember being at like a little fundraiser with my ex-husband at the time. And I was probably about 20 and I had 3 jobs because I was just either in school or putting myself through school. And someone said, well, what do you do? And I said, oh, I do this and I do this and I do this. And someone looked at me and said, well, don't you feel bad that you're taking jobs away from other people by doing that? And of course I'm 20. And at the time I'm like, oh my God, this woman is like shading me and I don't know what to say. But I'll never forget, this other woman looked at her and she's like, no, look at all her ambition. And she's going out and making it happen. And I thought to myself at the time, that's the kind of woman I want to be, is the one that's going to stand up for other women and not be the one who's attacking her and being like, stay small, don't do this. So it was oddly enough, like I said, we were just talking about it, but it's oddly enough, like it was this pivotal moment where I'm like, oh, like, who could I be? Which type of woman would I want to be? Like in my mind at that time, like when I was only 20, I was like, these mature women, which one? So I would say I was always ambitious in terms of work, but I wouldn't have classified myself as an entrepreneur. And even until I started reflecting back throughout my 20s, I didn't realize I had an entrepreneurial spirit, except that I did. And it's so funny because until you sit and reflect, sometimes you don't see those keys in your life. And I must have done, at least, I'm trying to think if it was 2 or 3 like direct marketing companies. So like the first one was Pampered Chef. And I don't know if you've ever heard of, oh yes, you've heard of Pampered Chef. And I love the product so much. And I'm like, yeah, I'm totally going to sell it. And I had no support from, like, I had no idea what I was doing, but I just knew I really loved that product. And then I kind of got out of that. And then I started getting into scrapbooking and crafts. So then I really enjoyed doing that. So then I signed up to do some selling, and I made handmade invitations and cards and stuff like that. And then I lost interest in that, and I guess so that's a really long answer to your question, but it was for me I didn't realize I had an entrepreneurial spirit until recently, when I've actually sat back and started reflecting on my journey to how I actually, till I got to this point. Yeah.
Yeah, other women that I've talked to, some have come to entrepreneurship quite late, others started as kids, selling eggs around the neighborhood or mowing the grass or something. There was always some way that they were making money. So, what was your main source of making money when you first started out at work?
Yeah, so thank you for asking that. So it was really interesting. I kind of, I'll say, fell into the job that I'm currently in when I was 21. I was
Oh,
hired at the natural gas company locally here in Ontario in Canada, and it was just the weirdest thing how it happened. I won't get into those details, but just like really luck. Like it was pure luck. There was absolutely no skill and or talent, and I got this job, and it was the job that made my parents incredibly proud. um, and I was excited because I looked at this job at 21. I stepped into it making a lot of money, and knowing that this would affect my life, my career, this would be what I need in my life. And it was really well paid. I had I still do. I still work there. I have benefits and pension, and and there was opportunity for growth and movement in there as well. So it was like truly, and we still talk about, to this day, and I was a leader in the company as well, where it's like handing me at the time, a winning lottery ticket. Like I couldn't believe how lucky I was to get the job that I have.
fantastic. So, what particular area do you work in?
So mostly customer service. So when I first started, I was a frontline customer service type representative, and then moved into different roles and eventually into a leadership role where I managed the group where I actually had started. And I guess that, goes into that ambition piece too, and I remember when I first started, I went sometimes I think I was so bold at 21, and sometimes I really wish I could tap into that, because I walked into the front, the secretary, I think it was administrative assistants probably still at the time, and said, what are the qualifications for the supervisor in this area? It's like, I've been there for like a month, like who I think I was. It's just so funny. And so I went and I got the qualifications. I'm like, okay, and it was almost like I had started the manifestation process at that point, because I knew that's what I had wanted to do, was come back and lead that group. And I left and I did some other jobs, and then I came back as a supervisor, and I was in there for about 10 years. And so much had shifted in my own personal life over the 10 years that by the end of it, I'm like, I need to get out of here. I need some drastic change in my life.
So, is this how you've moved into doing coaching work with women? What led you in that direction?
Yeah. So it was all at the same time where all of this started really shifting. And it's so funny because I think about your work and like midlife, and although I would say I'm probably midlife now, but this midlife process started at around 30. Like 30, I had my very first breakthrough, whatever you want to call it.
Epiphany, maybe.
It really was, because it was, I feel like I'm taking off on a tangent again, but at 30, I turned 30. I had my 30th birthday and was really horrible. And I cried a lot. And and I couldn't understand why I was so upset, because on paper, my life was like perfect. I had a great career. I made great money. I was married. I had 2 children and a dog and a house and a car. And I'm like, I have everything I'm supposed to have. Like at 30, most people, like, I'm ahead of the game, and I'm really, really miserable. So I started going to therapy because I'm like, what's wrong with me? And as it turned out, it was me. Obviously everything is me, but it was these other factors that were going on in my relationship that was affecting everything else. So I, as hard as it was, ended that relationship with my ex-husband and the father of my 2 daughters at the time. And then that kind of transition. And that was like I think 30 was moment, and like things had a ripple effect from that point on. So to answer your question again,
I knew we'd get there. I was confident.
So when I was about mid-30, I was in a new relationship and I had a new baby with my current partner, a third daughter I have, and I was trying to lose baby weight. So this is like losing the baby weight. And I signed up for another direct market. I love direct marketing companies. Like, they're fabulous. Like, I don't understand why people don't support them, but that's a whole other conversation we don't need to get into. And like, so I was with another direct marketing company for health and wellness. And I signed up to be a coach because I worked with a coach on a goals program before I left my ex-husband. And she said, what is your one big scary goal? And I said, I want to be a life coach. And I barely could even say it out loud, Pat, because I thought, like, who do you think like, I had imposter syndrome crazy then, especially. I'm like, you're hilarious, because if you think you could be like, there's no way you can't be a life coach. Like, so that was my big goal before I even left my ex-husband. And then I signed up as a coach for health and wellness because it felt safe and it didn't feel too scary. So I did that. And then through that process, coaching people, it was like, it was never about the weight. It was never about that. It was always about that connection with people and getting under what their desires actually are and helping them see, I might get emotional, but like helping them see how amazing they are. And, oh, Pat, what are you doing?
I'm a therapist.
Yeah, you're good. But it's watching my clients see how amazing they are and watching them achieve those things they didn't think that they could achieve. Ugh, like, I love it so much. And it's like what drives me forward. And so the health and wellness coach kind of led into life coaching and mindset coaching. And I started my meetup about 2 years ago, actually 2 years ago this month, based on that. But then what I started to notice was women were constantly coming to me going, I have something more inside me, or I think I want to run my own business, and just, and it just kept coming and coming and coming at me, like just all these business women. And I'm like, okay, the universe keeps showing up. So I pivoted a second time. So originally from health and wellness to life coaching, and just recently from life coaching to business coaching, where I thought, well, I feel super comfortable in the business arena because of my own work background. And it's still mindset coaching at the end of the day, because you manage your mind to manage your business. And
yeah,
so that's
absolutely
how I got here.
So I want to take just a step back for a moment and say the weight is never about the weight.
Ever. Never.
The clients who come to see me because they've got a weight issue, it's never just about the weight. There's always more going on. So if you're watching this and you're thinking, I want to lose a few pounds, I wish I could do it, go and get some help, because honestly, it's probably not about the weight. There's probably something more that you need to be talking about. And perhaps you'll get emotional, and that's all okay. There's always a big box of tissues somewhere. So this is Pat Duckworth, and today I'm talking to Jessica Burrell. So Jessica, what do you think that you've brought from all of those life experiences into the coaching that you do now? What are the sort of skills that you've brought into it?
You know, oddly enough, and this is what's coming up immediately when you ask me that, is listening. And I'm a talker. I'm very extroverted, which means typically I am waiting to respond to you. I am not actually listening to you. I am just listening so that I can get my 2 cents in and I can start talking. I'm obviously a talker. Look at me go. But the best skill I've developed was as a leader in my company, and my manager, who led me through those whole 10 years that I was a leader. He was amazing. He was the really, really wonderful leader. And it was very much, you need to work on your listening skills. And I would say that I resisted a lot in the beginning. So I'm like, I'd totally listen. So, but realizing that I wasn't, and so I started taking courses, but then he let me take a coaching course, to coach employees, obviously at the time. And we talked so much about listening. So I made a real active practice to say, how am I listening? How can I listen better? Because it's not about hearing, but about listening. So I would say number one, I think I'm really, really proud of my listening skills, and I can see the difference in them, because I'll be listening to conversations with other people, and I hear things, and other people respond, and I'm like, oh, they didn't hear that at all. Like, they totally missed it. And I think that serves me well with the coaching, because people don't say things, and now I can hear what they're not saying. And I think it pops up a lot differently for me than I would say it would have 5 to 10 years ago. And it pops up differently for me than other people as well.
So when people hear that you do storytelling, they're probably not picking up the importance of listening. So what's the importance of listening in storytelling?
So I think for me, it's like, it's a couple different things. So when people are telling stories, it's going like, how does that actually relate to my life? Because it always does. And, how can, like, someone's telling one story about, their weight loss journey, and I'm struggling with something completely different. I'm struggling with my own self-worth, or, imposter syndrome. And it's like the words that they're using to talk about weight loss, you could hear them and say, oh, geez, like, that actually has nothing to do with what I'm dealing with, but everything to do with what I'm dealing with. And for me, the storytelling piece is, the more I've done it, is like, everyone's like, oh, we're so different. We're so different. I'm like, oh my God, do you hear people's stories? We are all the same. We're all the same. And that just really helps me feel connected to people when I hear storytelling, because when I hear certain things that ring true for me, it's just a really beautiful reminder that we are not different, actually.
Yeah, we're all just trying to make sense of our experience.
Yeah.
So what does success mean to you now?
Success feels like, I would say, alignment and ease for me. So, like, I feel successful when I'm rolling something out, and not that it's not without hiccups or problems. Like, that's not what I'm ever looking for. Like, again, it's like when I hear stories of people just telling me all the beautiful things, and they're like, all the wonderful things, I'm happy for them. I'm just not interested, because tell me your challenges, show me the messy parts and the vulnerability in your life. And so I feel like that's the same for me. Is like, I want to be able to do something and have some challenges, but I want to show myself that I can figure that out, or I can overcome those. Or when I look at things, I'm like, okay, how can I do this? And I can look at things differently and then go move through them. I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm like, I read an article, or I listened to something once that said, like, our brains, when we have that light bulb moment, like when we figure something out that we hadn't previously figured out, like a problem that we're working on, and when we figure it out, our brains reward us with dopamine, and we feel like really good about it. And every time it's so funny, every time now I'm stuck with a problem I can't solve, I think, okay, how can I figure this out? And I think, like, I really think about that physical piece to go, I want a dopamine hit here. So how can I figure it out so I can feel like high, or feel success feels like I can face my obstacles and I can approach them. I can work through them, sometimes with help too. I have a coach. I have amazing accountability people, my partner, my kids. Like, I learned recently, again, because I'm a slow learner, like, community is everything, period, exclamation point, underline, highlighted, whatever. And the more community I have, the richer my life is, but the more happy and successful I am, and they are as well too. So,
and if you had a tip or 2 tips for new entrepreneurs, what would you be saying to them?
I would be saying 2 tips for sure. One is consistency, and it's annoying. I find it annoying. Consistency is annoying, but like that's it. It is all about how can you show up, showing up and showing up and showing up and showing up and showing up, and just being as consistent as you can. And that includes if you fall off the consistency wagon, then you get back on and you start being consistent again. And I would say that's definitely the one thing that I think is our hardest thing, because we're not patient generally. Myself, I'm the poster child for that as well. So how can you be more patient and more consistent? And the other thing is like, who are you surrounding yourself? Like, you're the product of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Who are they?
Yeah.
Who are they? And it's not about cutting people out of your life. It's about bringing people into your life that you want to be around. So those 2 things for me have been just game changers for sure.
Yeah, who you spend time with is who you become. It's really important. Whatever you're trying to achieve, you need to surround yourself with the people who are most going to get you there. That's, yes. Really important.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So Jessica, if anybody watching wants to find out more about you and what you do, how can they find you?
For sure. I love to hang out on Facebook, is probably my favorite spot. So it's Jessica Burrell Coaching is my business page. You can find me there. Or on my website is jessicaburrell.com. So those are the 2 places that you could get in touch with me, and I would love to hear from you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I've just loved talking to you. There's so many more things that I could share with you. I'm relating to so much of your story as we're talking. So what have we learned today? We've learned that success isn't necessarily tidy. It can be a bit messy, and that if we apply ourselves to problems and we get the answers, we solve the problem, we get a dopamine hit, and that means that we feel good about it. And those top tips, you've got to think about who you're spending time with, because that is really important. You've got to surround yourself with people who will inspire you and get you to that next level. And then about that consistency. Consistent as well, I would say, in how you show up. When you're authentic and you show up the same way, people respond to that. So it's not just about consistently sending out your emails at the same time or putting your posts up at the same time. Every time you stand up in a networking meeting, it's about being consistently who you are. That's my spin on that, but I think that's important.
I love that.
So thank you again, Jessica, and to all of our viewers, thank you for watching, and keep watching out for more of these amazing interviews with wonderful entrepreneurs. I'll see you next time.